Welcome everyone to another episode of Sacred You. And today I am talking with Anne LaFleur, who is in California. Wow. So what time is it there, Anne?
It's a 9 hour difference with where you are in Europe. It's 10 a.m. and I'm actually in the mountains of Santa Barbara currently.
Wow.
It's called, yes.
That sounds
Hmm.
lovely.
Yes, it's quite a journey. I'm very connected to the earth. That seems to be the calling to reinvent our lives while having fun,
Totally.
creating.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Create a whole new way of being, and letting go, and at the same time building something new. It's quite an adventure.
I've really been looking forward to talking to you today because I know, I don't know how long we've been in each other's lives now, but I know I've seen you around for a few years and I've been looking at your beautiful photos on Instagram, and it just, your work just has such a beautiful vibration to it. And I've always wanted to know more about your
Oh,
story. Yeah. I suppose I'm just
yes,
nosy. I'm just
yes,
nosy, really.
good. Yeah. No, and thank you for for this opportunity. And so you and I met without you maybe knowing it. It was I went through an awakening when I was living in New York. I was had a different profession, so I'm a flower vibration integration alchemist currently. The plant kingdom is very began talking to me about 7 years ago. Um, and it wouldn't let go. So they were really communicating and showed me their evolving plants and flowers, as particular flowers. The energy of the flowers would, woke something up within me, which created a massive overnight awakening, so to speak. Like one day to the next, everything, my old life fell apart right there, which that's a whole different story. Um, Including my old profession. So you could call it a meltdown or a breakdown, a crisis of sorts, in order to continue in a whole new way. And because of the immensity of the change for me at the time, it was a big shift. I didn't know quite what was happening, and also Jesus was starting to talk to me, communicating with me, and I didn't understand it. And I was raised Catholic, and I had kind of a negative association with Jesus. And so the fact that he was communicating with me, I was not very happy about. Anyway, shortly, I, I began to research, and then I ended up looking at going into Egypt. Fast forward, this is 2013, 2014, I went to Egypt. And then I did some research on, like, why is Mary Magdalene not in this picture? That was my whole thing with the church, that the women were left out, that I already knew.
Yeah.
And so then I discovered one thing led to another. I went to a sound healer, Tom Kenyon. He was very helpful during this process. And he wrote a book about the Magdalene. It's called the Magdalene Manuscript.
Yeah.
And it spoke of Sar, the daughter of Mary Magdalene. And so I began investigating Sar because I felt such a resonance. I was like, I cried, when I was like, I thought with my little ego that she was me. A little did I know. And that's when I met you, your channel of Sar.
Yeah.
And it was a saving grace. I can tell you that. I held on to it for dear life.
Wow.
And
Thank
so the
you.
connection,
That's amazing to hear that. Thank you.
yeah. And then, the nature, and then I was basically, I am very connected to Chartres, the cathedral, the gardens around Chartres, which is in France, which is,
Ah,
then I
okay.
realized very drawn to it, the Druids and the Celtic and the, you know, the nature spirits. But it was all not accessible. It was all locked up. I could feel that. So the flowers have evolved, and they showed me their evolution, and that they were for these new times to awaken within me this wisdom I already possessed. But SAR kept also, like, I went to Egypt to activate this SAR energy. I don't know how to explain that part, but exactly, but that's how it felt. There was like many people involved with the activation of the new time energy. It was like a sacred journey. It was a delicate process. It was 2014 during the Cardinal Cross. Nobody was in Egypt, but very few people were there, and I followed the footsteps of somebody else. It was like a miraculous little story. And I went to the Temple of Philae at Isis, Temple of Isis at Philae, is where the activation, I was guided to go there and find this pillar. And that's where Mary Magdalena and Jesus met me. And where we activated this, I relate to it as the SAR energy, you know?
Wow.
The younger, newer
Wow.
energy.
Where were you? What part of Egypt were you in?
It was Nubia area. So you know, of course, Giza was where it began, and then we flew to a couple of temples near Aswan and Hatshepsut. So it was like a slow build-up process. Took a trip on the Nile, and then ended in Philae, the Temple of Philae, which is near the village of it's in Aswan.
Okay.
So that ties into your aspect of SAR, and how does it relate to the flowers? So I communicate with flowers, and they communicate with me, as you'd say, and it's like a dance. So the flowers over the last 7 years downloaded their wisdom to me. Half of it I never understood what they were talking about, because it's very nonlinear. And now, 7 years or almost 8 years later, it's becoming very clear of what this preparation was for. Last 7 years were, to me, a preparation. And now we're evolving further. But it's helping flowers' vibration. It's an alchemical transformation that happens when we listen and learn to listen closely through our sensory and feeling nature, while these flowers mirror back what we've forgotten. You know, our human body's forgotten, our minds are forgotten, and the mind has dominated us. And so we're coming into balance more from a feeling nature. So they've been teaching me how to start feeling, which is kind of omitted from our lives. It's almost taboo, right? To feel. I'm only now discovering that many people don't, when I say feel how this energy of this flower feels to you inside. It's different for everybody, but some people just don't know. That's when I'm realizing, like, oh, no, not everybody understands the deeper feeling, what that means. Mm-hmm. So it gets confused with ego and emotions, which we also need to. Yeah. So it's like a whole bringing you back to, because the mind is creating its own story, and then how can we start to feel what we want to create in our new lives more from a soul's direction. That's how the flowers are used. That's how they are guiding. So I'm just a vessel, and I hold that knowing. And then I allow the flowers to reach the person, like a client, or I make an energy blend, you know, and then it's transmitted. And things start to shift within the person. It's like a gift of an alchemical reaction that happens, but it's very subtle and very deep. And you start to remember what was unconscious. I don't know how to describe it other than that. It's like an unconsciousness becoming conscious while you're in touch with the energy of that flower.
That's just
So that's,
beautiful. I mean, I can just feel it so much, and I have quite a lot of things, going through my mind as you're talking. But if we go back to what you were saying earlier about how your life just sort of disappeared overnight,
yeah.
I had the same experience in I think about 2009. It was a year after my father died. And I
Mhm.
literally, because, I feel energy very, it's very present
Yeah.
for me. It's not something I have to think about. It's sort of just there. And I woke up one morning and literally all of the energy links between me and the life I was living had all been cut overnight.
Mhm.
And it was just
Right.
one of the most shocking things that has ever well, it probably is the most shocking thing that's ever
Yeah.
happened to me, because I was just
It makes
like,
me almost want to cry when I listen to you, out of
yeah,
joy and also the sadness of the drasticness that you
it was
went
so
through.
it
Yeah.
was so drastic. I nearly died. I mean, I really nearly died because I knew I couldn't stay in the family home where I was, but also to leave was just
Yeah.
so against everything that I sort of held dear, my values. And yet
Yeah.
I had to do it for myself. It was like, stay here and die or leave,
Yeah.
and maybe you'll die, but maybe you'll find a new life. There was that possibility.
Yeah.
So I gave my life over to
Yeah.
the divine. I said, right, swear, 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 call in, spirit and
Right.
everybody, a lot of names. I was really not impressed. If you're going to do this to me, then, I'm going to listen to every bit of guidance I get. And if I think it's all right, I'm going to do it. And otherwise, I'm clocking out off the planet. I can't do this anymore. And then,
Exactly. Wow.
yeah, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then I went to Sedona. So I got the message to go to Sedona, and I spent some time there, like getting the energies and the matrices and codes and things that I needed, and dissolving the things that I needed. And then I went and lived in Glastonbury in the UK for a while. And then I went to the Findhorn Foundation in Scotland.
Uh,
Do you know that? I feel like you've got a connection to it somehow. Do you know it?
yes. Well, I haven't been yet, of course, because of yes, I know it, and I feel a very deep connection to Glastonbury, and I'm very tempted. So I meet a lot of people who either currently live there, and I want to go to Findhorn, but somehow I don't feel guided right now to do that at all. It feels that was a stepping stone for the current.
Yeah.
That was whatever took place there in the 70s was the stepping. So it's all a stepping stone, and it's a journey.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Findhorn, it's very important, but I don't relate to it. It's and I don't think I was supposed to. Maybe later on it'll come, because I had to learn. It's what you're describing is like, yeah, in your situation, yeah, it always involves death or
Yeah.
near death, etc.
Yeah. Well, when I
To
went when I
backtrack,
went
but
when I went to Findhorn, I discovered a lot of other people who had also gone through this very abrupt kind of dissolution or dissolving process.
mhm,
And,
yeah,
those energies of the new earth, and it was all just so there. And so I decided that I was going to stay in their community for a while and kind of work through whatever was
nice,
going on until I found my next step. And then I met my
mhm,
husband. That's where I met my Danish husband there. And that's how I ended up in
yeah,
Denmark. But I
yeah,
was really not looking to meet a
yeah,
man. It was really not
no,
what I wanted
Inter-
at the time. But he was very handsome.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you fell in love. Well,
Yeah.
maybe I should go to Findhorn.
Well, maybe you'll go and teach there or something. I mean, I found it very difficult to sleep there, to be honest, because I'm, so sensitive to energies. And it
Yeah,
feels to me like they've created a new vortex there. Eileen Caddy and Dorothy McLean and, you know, all the people that were there. Feels like they created a new Earth vortex that's very, very raw and wearing out all this energy that people need to wake up. And of course, you know, I'm already quite awake. So it was a bit like having to be in a room with the radio turned up too loud, and I could not sleep. I've never been so overstimulated in my life.
Yeah. Oh no, I can see that. And so for me currently, so who knows what will happen, but everybody is doing their work, and it is there for a reason. But so I definitely during that wake up time, I could smell, I could hear the voices through the walls of you know, thick walls of other people's arguing. I could, it was unbearable, the intensity of what I felt. So I'm very empathic. I can feel everything, and I'm only now learning to navigate what's mine and what's others. But I went to the Redwoods 4 years ago. So I ended up after my wake up time, it was just a process. So it was so drastic. I ended up at Omega Institute, where I learned, you know, who I was. While I let my old life go. I don't know if you know Omega Institute. It's a holistic institute where people experiment with you know, all the possibilities they have in life. Then I went to the Redwoods, and I stayed there for 3 years. And it's like what you're saying. If this is what the new life is about, I don't want any part of it. It wasn't that I was suicidal at all, but I also saw that this drastic way of presenting a new happy life was not what I wanted. So I had arguments with my guys, and I was like, you know, if this is what you call the new life, then I don't want a part of it. So I was very angry for a while, and because I completely misunderstood it. I was so sidetracked by a very material New York City lifestyle, but also my upbringing. So most people come from so it was a very wealthy upbringing, or pretense, you know, not heart-based for many generations. So the fact that I wanted to step out of it later on, this is only kind of happening now, was not so easy. So the ancestors wouldn't really let me go. That's the weird part of this. So it was really like having to fight for my freedom and my independence, my individuality, my uniqueness, which I think the whole new earth is going through. They're coming out of this enslavement, this victimhood. A victim. I'll keep you happy if you keep my family happy. I'll do, you know, I'll be submissive. This division is being ripped away. I feel like I'm jumping way ahead now, you know, from the past to the future.
I am quite interested to hear where you're from, and you know what your life has been like growing up. Don't know if you'd like to talk a bit.
Yeah. So I'm from So it's a big. So I'm from the Netherlands, and as a child, I was always very connected to nature, and loved flowers and plants. And then we moved a lot. So it was financially, my parents lost. It was like what's happening currently in the States. Many people, like, you know, very attached to money, and then also losing a lot. So individuals, is micro. What I'm seeing now, macro. So individually, my parents, well-to-do. My father's side lost all his money for whatever reason. Well, that's actually because of the ego of his father, etc. And as a child, I just felt I couldn't fit in, be myself. Actually, I wasn't allowed to be loving, and whenever there was love, they would crush it. It was a little narcissist. And so if I loved and showed love, they would fight me on that love. So I became very adapted to the family's wills. And so I did go to horticulture school, And then my mother decided she wanted to live in a bigger house, so she moved to an area where the schooling was very bad. I had a learning disability, so I went to 8 different schools. Just completely confused about your school systems. And where I was the happiest was the choice I had originally made to go to horticulture school, but I was taken away from it because of learning disabilities, etc. And then my parents thought it was, and by then I didn't know who I was already. So my parents decided I was able to cook well, that I should go to hotel school. So I agreed. So it's not that I'm blaming them, because I didn't say I don't want to go. I just didn't know what else I wanted. This is when I was younger. Yeah. And we moved to Indonesia when I was 13 because of my father's job. And so I'm very fortunate with a lot of this, because that's where I was the happiest, because of the softer Eastern ways. And my parents were quite happy there. It was just a very different energy. And so now I'm 58. So it's, then I moved to New York from the Netherlands after my father died. A year later, I moved to New York, and it was because I didn't want to be close to my family. It's not that I didn't love them, it was just like my escape was New York. Yeah. As a private chef for a very nice, kind family.
Okay, wow.
And I hardly refer to the chefing anymore, because everybody wants to know what I used to cook, and I can't stand cooking. So 30 years I was a chef, and I just wasn't who I was, and I didn't know that. And then this awakening. I was catering a wedding upstate, and I had this crisis happened where 2 weeks before the wedding was to take place, and I was cooking for a family where they had a famous chef come in who completely, anyway, never mind the negatives of it, but I broke down and I just couldn't cook anymore, and I had to cancel the wedding, which I was booked to do in 2 weeks, and I'd been working with this bride for a year, a 25-year-old, her dream, her wedding, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't cook anymore. So that I thought was really brutal, and she took it really well. And that's when the flowers began to talk to me. Am I making any sense?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of the back, I'm getting I don't like talking about it. It makes me nervous talking about it, but it's maybe not, because it's not a negative to me anymore. And I don't want to speak about it from a place of pity, because it's not that. And maybe it's good to express it, but it's not to say, oh boy, you know what, I don't want the drama. But when you talk about this stuff, the drama does show up.
Yeah, and so, I really value you for talking about it, and and that's also why I say things about it as well, because I know that the people listening will identify with so much of what we're saying and realize it's not just them. And, I bet people listening back to this, there'll be quite a few of them crying because they thought it was just them, and that they were, and that all the negative judgments we make about ourselves, because, we're not doing what is judged as normal by the rest of society. And yet, when we all communicate to each other, and this is another reason why I do this podcast, we realize there's a thing happening here. It's not just me. And they'll be going, oh yeah, oh yeah, and understanding so much of what you're saying, just as I'm understanding so much of what you're saying.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm glad you're mentioning that, because I am so grateful when I do work with people who are, have gone through whatever experience, dark night of the soul, and don't know where to begin. But when I'm on the phone with clients, I hear people's stories, so I know I'm not alone. And so I forget that they often think they're alone, that like, just like you with SARS channeling, we're like, oh, I'm not alone, it was there. So yeah, so I feel it's such a gift to work with people with flowers, because it shows me I am not the only one going through this, what's happening in even that particular week or on that day. It's very often a similar collective energy that is being released or aligning or bringing us joy. But at the same time, so my focus is on joy, and that's why it's flowers. So the focus is joy. Well, that's a pretty high vibration.
Yeah.
So I couldn't. So for the longest time, the minute I was aiming for joy, what would follow right after in my psyche was suffering. And it just would drive me crazy. Like every time I went at the joy grid, I call it the joy grid, like let's connect to the joy grid, something would rip it apart, like come out of the woodworks, very dark. The suffering. So it is the negative association. I call it the connection to the tree of good and evil, that I was trying to break out of, that just wouldn't let the tree of life of good and evil, that wouldn't let go. And so I was like, it made me so determined to connect to the flower of life, no matter what. And so every time the tree of life of good and evil would appear, that's how I defined it. I would be like, okay, bring it on, make me stronger, because it's got to break. It's like the iron fist. And so the joy grid is finally holding steady. It's where we are going as a human species. I believe it, I know. But we still have to let go of a lot of old stuff at the same time. So it's kind of, we have to earn our stripes, so to speak.
Mm.
And
yeah. I think those of us on the planet right now, I think we're really courageous people. Those of us working with this light and the dark, and as Sarah would say, like the work of the alchemy and integrating them. I think we're really, really brave.
Yes. And isn't it interesting, when I got the title, you're saying alchemy and integrating, I was even arguing about that, okay, with my guides. It was like flower, vibration, integration, alchemist. And I had just, I'd worked with flower essences, such as coming from Findhorn, But I kept saying, no, it's flower essences, and you've got the wrong person, because there's other people who are practitioners, and they would say it's not flower essences, it is flower vibrations. Like the guidance was very specific. And then it would be integrative alchemist, which I believe is the words from Sarah later on. Now that you're saying it, it's making sense. I didn't know what it meant. I got a title, I didn't know what it meant. Flower, vibration, integration, alchemist. Go for it. Enjoy your new life. I lost all my money. I let go, well, happily so.
Oh.
I, one by bit, it was like from, losing the worth and seeing my value. It was literally like beginning to see my true value. And so the worth that my education and many people's backgrounds are attached to, it can't just go just like that. We're very attached to money. And at the same time, when you start to work from your heart, I also learned you don't have to be poor, St. Francis is very much a guide of me, for me, connected with me. But I don't have to walk around like a pauper, my life is so rich. It's like I have everything I need. Everything always appears when I need it. But the value, it's a value, and I'm very conscious of the value that my new life has brought me. But the minute I go to, I need money, like the worth, that's when I'm in trouble. So it's very much an inner, keep going, feeling inward and flowers are guiding me to what's it worth. And then I'm always guided because of the flowers, in my case, because I'm so connected to the flowers. They always guide me to true values, to such a richness of life. I stand in richness, you know.
I really
So
hear that. I really hear it.
yeah, but the one thing is because I'm not married, and I'm so as a single person, a single woman, it's also I am a free spirit, and so I learned one by one to let go. It's just about letting go of just about everything. It's till the point is like when there's nothing left, what is there, you know?
Yeah.
Then it's like, who am I, etc. And so a year ago, I left the Redwoods, and I had bought a little trailer back when I left New York to drive to the Redwoods. And that's my saving little, that's my house. And so I began to travel in July full time now, this past July 2020, full time in my little trailer. For now, it's still in California, and always guided to the right places. Even within those fires, I'm never there. You know, I'm always in the right places. That's my home, and this is, you know, this is not the normal way to live. But to me, it's like, it is normal to me. It feels good to me. And it never occurred to me that living in my little trailer was an option until I did it.
But I mean, once upon a time, that was normal for people to travel around like that. I mean, like going back much further in time, people would be in one place in the summer and then another place in the winter. And then there's always been nomadic tribes that have traveled around. But now, where we've got so attached to property and ownership and contracts and all that, it's like it's been really, really stamped out, hasn't it? I mean, people who are that culture have been stopped and imprisoned in a certain place on the land, and they're not allowed to do it anymore. There's laws against them in the UK. I don't know about the States, but in the UK there's laws against it now. You can't, they've legislated against all the travelers.
Wow. Yeah, wow. No, almost here too. So so it's interesting what you're saying. Yes. So for me too, you know, living in New York, I was like, what am I going to do when I retire? Well, I need a house in the Caribbean.
Yes.
So, you know, that was my way. Like, I'll go there in the winter and I'll be there in the summer. And so I bought myself a little piece of land and lost a ton of money on it. At least I was able to sell the land. You know, I had the big plans. So that all changed. And then, as you're saying about no, we are allowed to travel in the UK, in the US, in our trailer. It's a big industry. It's a big, it's been, you know, the US is so big. But because of COVID, what did happen, they closed most of the parks, most of the campgrounds. And so right before, this is like 2 months ago, this is when they did that. And I didn't know this was happening at all because I don't really watch the news. I'm just following my intuition, and I kind of know that I need to listen to certain things. And I was shown I needed to get a membership. It's almost like an elite membership for the campers, so that you're part of this campsite system, of a particular system. And it was expensive, but I bought the full-blown membership, and I can visit all these campsites and always be safe and have a place to land, because they didn't close that particular organization that I'm a member of. They shut everything, but not that one. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm so happy to hear that for you. Yeah.
Yeah, but the fight is often big. It's kind of like, oh, well, you know, you need to upgrade your membership. And it's like, well, I am, you know, I'm rich in a different way than you would think. You know, it's like I don't necessarily have that money in the bank that the membership was. But so it kind of showed me, you know, it's like how I could become creative and where I needed to go to get what I needed. And I was shown how it would work out. So what I'm referring to, so these are details of one or two details of how, you know, you're confronted with options that are not always easy choices, but it takes a deep trust in yourself. And so rebuilding trust and trusting your gut and your feelings is what these flowers in particularly have been so helpful, have been teaching me. Trust that they're, you know, the laws of nature will never fail you. And the minute you start to doubt that, then we get to be a little bit in trouble, and that's where the new times come in. Like, how do we begin trusting ourselves again? And we are travelers, you know, as you say, from the old days. And I think the West Coast, when I was traveling to the Redwoods, I actually had visions of the Native Americans coming from Mexico and going all the way up the coast to Washington and back. But they were never stationary, so I did see that.
Yeah.
That was there, and I was always fascinated by it. But the fact that I would do this, no, it would be like, you know, that I would get in a trailer and start traveling is like. Yeah. So, you know, and the judgments around it of like, oh boy, you know, you can't afford to live in a house. It's like, it's not that. It's, well, that too, you know, the money part. If I had the money, I wouldn't have thought this way.
Yeah. I think since I left my career in nursing when I was, I don't know, 30 or something, I think I've just done one thing after another that's been judged by people, you know, and I obviously don't come up to the standard, and I can honestly say I don't care about it anymore. Because it took me I've had 20 years of people just looking at me and just, you know, thinking that I'm just below standard, and it's like, it's fine, you know, because I don't want to live like them, so it's all right.
Yeah, but it's also, you know, I mean, same here, but I also, in the end, I didn't realize I was actually judging myself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And when you're 30 and when you're living in a particular, you know, lifestyle, and also a world, and the Netherlands and Belgium, you know, it's, and racism was big too. It's like, you know, being Catholic in, or bigotry or whatever, Catholic in the Netherlands, you know, all of that, even though people are now talking about, you know, Black Lives Matter, it's not just color, you know, it's amongst each other. People are, it's just, everything is connected. And so I'm throwing that in there because it's not just color or white or black, you know. So we are all unique beings, and we all have a special gift to offer to the big whole, and to find your specific contribution, or my specific contribution, which is what we're doing, very different. You know, your work very different from mine, and that makes the whole. It's like a little beehive. That makes the whole, but our sameness is what makes it all a bit boring. If we were looking, you know, if we were all like looking for, like, you got to be the same as the neighbor, because that's what, you know, that's kind of out the door. That's the big cord that was.
I really like that. Now, I want to go back to your Instagram page that I mentioned. What's the name of it, Anne?
So it's a Starlight, Starlight _vibrations.
So that's SAHR _ and then light. Now I'm bringing this up because Anne's pictures on there are just phenomenal, and you just have to go on there and just go down through her profile, because each picture is like there's beautiful plants sort of set up like in an altar, and the energy vibrations that come off it are it's just
Yeah.
lovely. I really
Thank.
love looking at your pictures.
Oh, yeah. It's recent that that happened. I started to create with stuff that I find like the on the ground, but from the plants. So and it happens in 2 minutes. It's just like whoa, and this energy of it, I feel that myself. But they're dried right now. It's winter. You know what can you find? And I always find something. Or I go to the beach and I find a piece of lava with stone with holes in it, and that's the holder. But it's starlight / vibration is my Instagram. And starlight, obviously it's got the name Sar, and that's related to you, Rachel, because
Okay.
Sar, most of the names for my website were taken, but starlight is like they're like, is it starlight? I'm like, no, it's starlight, and it has a very personal, meaning to me. Sar is in there. Sar brought me light.
Yeah.
That's how it relates to me and the energies. And so yeah, and I think you refer to Sarah, right? You don't say Sarah. Oh yes, you do.
I mean,
You do say Sarah.
I mean, I kind of take it in all aspects. I mean, I'm not really attached
It's,
to any one particular name. I use Sarah most of the time just because it's the easiest, and
uh,
but I don't, it's not because that's how she comes to me or anything. She comes to me as an energy. She doesn't have a name.
yeah.
You know,
No,
and I don't sort of favor one name after the other, but recently I have rather liked, and I think I've seen this is like Islamic name perhaps, but Sahra. I quite like that one.
yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's how I use it. More biblical. Maybe to test my own biblical, kind of like resistance at the time. But it's the same for me with names. Although my spirit name, Anne or Angelica, I use the short version because it's easier. But I never. I liked my original name also, but it kind of made a statement for myself. Like, it was my commitment. Like, I don't care what you think, but I am working with energy, and this is my spirit name. And it had already come up 4 years ago, Angelica, and of course it's related to the flower Angelica, and the energy of Angelica. And so yeah, a name is a name. But during a workshop at Omega, I was, attending to get a lot of these freebies. A woman asked me my name, and I said my old name, and she says, "No, that's not your name." I'm like, "Well, I do know my name." It's not your name. And she kind of, was into energy, very much into nature spirits. And you kind of meet people like that there, and it's like your Findhorn, with my
Yeah,
Omega.
yeah.
And so I never thought about it much. And then during, a shamanic journey, my spirit name come through, and I heard on, and I was like, Angelica, and I just couldn't quite use Angelica because I thought it was just too big. And I said it in that group, like, well, I got a spirit name come through, Angelica, and everybody was like, oh, that is so you. And I was like, really?
Yeah, I think it's really cool because it's like it's got angel in there, hasn't it? It's like, and it's a
Yes.
flower. Now, tell me if I'm right. Is it used in cooking, Angelica? Is it
I
the
bet
the root of
I
it?
yes, 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 tea and everything. So medicinally, I think this is another thing. It's a good question. Medicinally, you would think I'd be I'm not necessarily equipped there's other people who work with flower essences very much on a medicinal level or for healing. I work more on an energetic level for the new times, very much on the soul level. So, but there are other people who work with the energies of the plants more, like I have a sore throat, what would you take? So when it would be normal for people to ask me, like, what are the properties of Angelica medicinally? And I would not know.
No,
I'm like, what?
no, yeah. I mean, I understand that completely, because those sort of informations, I find them really interesting, but I don't retain them. Whereas the vibrational stuff, because that's the level that I'm working at, that's where I'm at, and I can always pull that information sort of out of the air, as it were. But
Yeah.
I remember something about Angelica, because I used to like cooking. I mean, I still cook now, obviously, because I need to eat and my family need to eat. But I've always been a big cook and a big eater as well. And when you were telling your stories about when you were a chef, I was thinking about, and because I could hear like that's what you were pouring your creativity into, because I can see like from your photos that you're quite artistic. You've got an artistic touch. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to throw all that stuff together, and all your creativity went into the food. But when I was the last place I lived in the UK, which is a place called Earlswood, which is near, it's sort of on the outskirts of London, really. And we were living in a small apartment, and our youngest was just a baby then. And one time, me and Thomas, we weren't married then, we'd had this huge row. And so I went around smudging it with a sage stick afterwards to clear it all out. And when I went in the kitchen, there was so much negative energy in there that needed clearing. And I was like, why is it so bad in here? I love cooking. I love cooking. It's what I do to de-stress. And I realized that was exactly the point. Instead of sitting down and doing my spiritual stuff and listening to spirit and using my creativity that way, I was pouring it all into the food and then kind of stuffing my face with it. And it was like, it was not the thing to be doing. It was me, it was like an addiction or something, it's like drinking instead of like expressing your feelings. And that's what I was thinking about when you were talking about your chef stuff. I thought you might appreciate that.
Yeah. I cooked, and I still, when I cooked with love, people would, and it was for even people who were a little denser, they would feel it,
Yeah.
They would feel, but when it became a profession, and it was more to serve, like the family, it was a profession. It wasn't at all it wasn't me. But cooking, I'm so happy, especially now in my little trailer, that I make wonderful meals, and I love to cook, and I love to share a good meal. But the minute it becomes a must, it does not good. Well, I want to say something about the saging, though, and then you tell me how that feels. So I learned, I had a very a strange experience when all I knew was you clear a space, you take sage, and boom, done deal, right? And so that's as much as I knew about smudging. And so I had a very negative experience. So what happens is with the saging, because it's so powerful, that it takes out everything. It clears out everything. It opens up everything. But that also means it opens up for everything for negativity to come in. So it lets go of the negative and the positive. So in my case, clearing with sage, it opened the door for a lot of negativity to enter, because I didn't know at the time I was susceptible to all these energies. And I had never learned that after saging, you also need to do a softer touch to seal, the environment and make it a protective, sacred sanctuary for yourself. So randomly staging without a second thought of doing the other parts, I learned the hard way that if you just say, let's clear everything, then you open the door also for a lot of you take out all the boundaries, a lot of negative stuff can also enter.
Well, I think that's
So
really, I
that's
think that, yeah, that's really useful that for people to hear that you mentioning that, because yeah, I mean, like when I do clearings, I will always bless the space afterwards.
mhm,
Or I use the violet
right.
flame sometimes, and the violet flame, it does that. It sort of gets rid of the negative and brings in the positive. So it's a sort of an
Yeah,
all-in-one hair and conditioner type thing. But if I'm like,
yeah,
if I'm moving into a new house and I clear everything, but of course I'm doing it with my sensors. I'm doing it with my energy sensors, and I can feel what
yeah,
needs doing, and then I invoke, the blessings that will
yeah,
come in. But yeah, I mean, that's really interesting to hear you say that, and for people to hear it and think, right, okay, so when I go around with sage, then, and it's really simple to do. You can call on whoever it is that you like. For an angel person, you call on the angels and say, angels, please bless this room, please bless the
right,
space. Or you can call on Kuan Yin, or whoever, or Sarah, or the flowers, or it
mhm,
really doesn't matter. But yeah, you do need to fill up that space. If you clear it out, then you have
yeah,
to,
yeah.
because absolutely it creates a vacuum, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, and so and by now I also learned more and more to the importance of the ceremony. It doesn't have to be long, but the importance of respecting, and as you're saying, the violet flame. But many of us, we heard somewhere, which was me at the time, this is before my wake up, we all heard like, oh, get some sage, clean it out, without a second thought. So everything is conscious. So that's what I learned from that. Like, you can't just go around and smoke out the whole place and hope things will be better, because a lot of people are at that place. And even more conscious people sometimes forget. So yes, yeah. I mean, and I have my little salt bowl, and I've even taught workshops at the time doing space clearing using flower essences and those energies. I did want to say so to Angelica, because I could feel when I said it, it's like people are like, well, what does it mean? So this is like, so I had this is maybe helpful if you want. Shall I mean, I'm butting in, I should have, but Angelica, what it said to me finally, because I wasn't collecting a flower vibration from Angelica, and I think it was like, you are Angelica, but the energy so it's always like when I connect with a plant and I collect the energy, it shares its vibration, its story, what it has to offer with me, sometimes right there, sometimes later. And Angelica says, do not fear the guidance. I am here to help you disengage from their story, the conditioning. Trust your intuition. Don't allow yourself to be told it is not true, when you follow your intuition. So it is time to activate your self-worth. And so make your destiny the part of the divine plan to serve this creation. Isn't that beautiful?
That is really beautiful.
While but you must make choices for yourself. Now that was the hard part. Choices for myself. Like, it's like we were taught in the Christian, like, not putting yourself first, but we must put ourselves first. And that was like the double-edged sword. Like, I didn't know what that kind of meant,
Yeah.
Make sure you're nurturing yourself and setting your own needs first. So that took a lot of, you understand, set your own needs first, and then the guilt came up, and the shame, and the blame, and oh, you're so whatever, what people tell you, you're so selfish. So that's the underlying why it came. It is not about manifesting your destiny as a separate individual, or relying that the beliefs or your choices should be made for you. This is also like, so trusting your own beliefs, which are very contradictory often to your family, probably ties into your background, right? When you overnight, went to like, what are my beliefs? And then you kind of ask yourself, and oftentimes you don't remember what they are. You just don't know, because you learned over the last 2,000 years that your beliefs didn't count.
Yeah. Oh, wow. How many flowers do you think you've communicated with now and heard their stories? Have you got any idea?
There's probably about 250, and then there's a couple that I was talking to a sycamore. It was talking to me the other day, actually, and it just is not the right season, but it was strong. And so some of them I just communicate. I don't always collect the energy. I just am like, thank you for your energy. So it's about 250, if not more. And then ongoing, you know, I meet flowers, I have no idea what they are, and they're like, pay attention, we'll show you later what we had to say. and I'll have to go ask somebody, you know, California has so many flowers. I'm like, what is this flower? You know, I don't know half the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you
But
do you
weave
do you
story
share? Do you share those? Do you ever share those stories?
Well, I've written them all down. Yeah, I do. And this is what so when I work with clients or with people or in a group, or, you know, I make blends, energy blends. And they begin to work in the space. That's what I make the blends, and they're always balancing. But the stories, I love sharing the stories. You know, like how when you sit next to a sequoia or in front of it, it'll wrap itself around you. And how I climbed up a redwood from within. I didn't know I was inside the tree. I was like, where am I? And I was inside the tree, higher and higher and higher. And I just didn't know. I was in a dark place, but it was, you know, a little hole peeking out. I was like, where am I? It's like a living dream. And then I reached the top all the while, and I saw my little trailer, and I saw the horizon, and I looked outside on the horizon, and my little cat at the time was sitting next to the trailer. And I that's the story of the redwood. Like, you are safe in this redwood. It was very pleasant, even though I was climbing up inside a tree, didn't know it. And that's, to me, later on, was like, you are going to travel in this trailer and expand your horizon, because in the redwoods, it's all very safe, but I couldn't expand there because it was all very contained.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, that's the story of a tree. And I think it's not, you know, people might think it's unusual to talk to flowers, but it's not. Many people, and you yourself know many of those people, and yourself also, you know, the trees connect when you ask. You know they have something to share.
Yeah.
So that's bigger than a flower. So that's easier to connect with. But each flower does the same. It's just more subtle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could feel when you started talking about that Angelica and telling the story, I could feel that energy coming in so strong, and that was really, really beautiful. Is there one more flower that maybe wants to come forward tonight that you could tell us a story about?
Let's see what comes up. Shooting star. Oh, I wish upon a star. Isn't that funny? Shooting star. From darkness to light. Oh. Well, this might be very good currently for the collective, and individually we'll see if people resonate with it. When you no longer know what to expect, or no longer know how to expect things to be, or expect yourself to be, the shooting star is like a program breaker of how you tell yourself you are expected to be. She puts you back to the steps so that realistic expectations can come through, and shows that the connection to the blood lineage, you know, to your family, the group, is is different from your soul family. And so that there's limits to fitting into the group of that particular kind, that the lineage, unexpected expectations for the group, for the unexpected expectations for the, I'm actually channeling right now, for the individual, often limit the individual within a group. And so enormous powers from within your unique being are shooting up like a torpedo. It looks like a torpedo. It's the unique core inner source energy that is emerging collectively from your individual being. Wow. So I wonder, and you and I spoke about it, Rachel, does it feel like you've been given an unexpected jolt recently? That's what you and I went through already. So the vibration of the shooting star invites you to build on this pounding inner force that is spewing up from your own core, from your inner wisdom. And sometimes we must grow in unexpected ways, from darkness to light. This is like a collective we're in.
Wow.
So use this energy and do what you are called to do if you feel that's the time. So it's an intense emerging power that is producing a lot of energy so that you can start to move mountains. And the reason I suspect it's coming up right now, this moving mountain, we're collectively all waking up. So individually, you have moved quite a few mountains. I have done our individual work. If we all individually are moving our own mountain, it becomes a big movement. Yeah. So we don't need to worry about the outer, but so if you're going through this, whoever hears this, it's like, oh, I've just been jolted out of my comfort zone. There's a silver lining that might not be visible yet. It's coming out of it. That's all. It's like what you and I spoke of, like when you said, I don't want this, because it's so devastating when it's sometimes too big a change. So it's interesting that this came up. I wasn't at all expecting the question, and it's what showed up, the shooting star. So it's quite it's a torpedo almost.
Wow. What does it look like?
It's violet.
Okay.
And yeah, very bright violet. I will post it, I think, on Instagram.
Yeah,
it's violet,
please.
and it has a little, so the leaves are down, and then out of the top, that's why it's called shooting star, is a little black spigot sticking up, shooting up. So it's that darkness that you're shooting out. Shooting star. So it's very magenta, bright violet.
That's just beautiful.
And here I had wrote something else about detach from the old system, so your powers can shoot up into the light like a rocket. Yeah, that's funny.
I love that, and I'm gonna listen back to this and hear it again, and then listen back and write it down, because like when you were speaking those words, I could just feel like all the channeled energy and the codes like coming into me, and I couldn't actually focus very much on the words because I was too in touch with the energy that I was receiving. So there was such a strong energy coming from that. So I think your work is really incredible, and I think more people need to, be able to access what you're doing, and it's just really just the depth and the breadth and the heights, and you know what I mean. It's just so expansive. I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. Like if I go out and like I do this in my Nordic shamanism work, if I need some healing or something, I'll just go out and pick up go to what I'm naturally drawn towards, a plant or a
That's
flower,
important.
and sit and hold it, and it'll talk to me and give me messages and everything. But you have a
Yeah.
really special relationship you've come to heal through this work. And maybe that's why I'm getting the Findholm Foundation thing, because, you know, they've as well, you know, there's a lot of people there who have developed a strong thought form of working in that way. But your work, it's really, really something else. And it would be wonderful if you could do online classes, or I don't know, do a
Yes.
flower of the month on Instagram where you tell the story or something, because people, I just, you know, I just feel people need this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, you're bringing something up that I might. By the way, what I didn't, well, I forgot. I'm like, I got that picture up. That shooting star image is on my Starlight page on Facebook. I have a page. It's called Starlight,
Okay.
and the image instead of my face, it's got the image of this shooting star. So, but you're bringing something up, and then I think. I don't know, but I don't know how we didn't put an hour on this, but I have been thinking of pondering about kind of rather, yeah, we could do tune-ins, but if people want to get a group together of 4 or 5 people and, you know, walk them through the steps, could be fun to do with using flowers, and then kind of see in a group setting that you're not alone, that there's always a reason, you know, that you're in that particular setting together, that what you're going through, the neighbor is going through also in a very different way. And the flowers will show you that. So it could be fun to maybe do that. I've done Zoom, you know, group calls, but because of my travels, it's too risky with the connections are not, because live in nature, it's my choice, okay? So I don't mind that I have limited connection. But Zoom is often not powerful enough in these in the remote areas. Phone, I can always, you know, I do phone sessions one-on-one, but I'm leaning more, a little bit. I've been thinking about it, of starting to do more little groups to reach more people, because it's, you know, it's often the same things we're going through, and then you find support from each other. So you brought up an idea.
Yeah, and maybe some little books or something.
Yeah, and I also recently started to kind of make little notes of like, what are the steps, you know, because there seem to be this particular kind of steps to get from A to B. What are the steps, you know, what do I need to watch for? A little book, like, you know, writing a book.
Yeah.
Maybe. Lots of possibilities. Right now I'm into making these little altar pieces.
Oh, I know.
Requested.
They're just beautiful.
They've requested, like, yeah, I can't mail them, you know, and they fall apart, you know, the minute I go to a new place often. Sometimes I take them with me. But people have asked me, can you make me an energy piece? And and I have, you know, gladly done that. And it's kind of like, you know, I make it so that one woman asked me, can you make me a piece of abundance? I'm like, sure. And so she asked, like, she wanted to pay. And I'm like, you know, I've been thinking, somebody else has given me something, and so I could do donation button, but it's also something maybe to think of, like, pay it forward. What if you give something else to somebody? You can give me something if you want to, or you can give something to somebody else. Well, I know I'm getting a gift from somebody else also. So it's a different kind of giving.
Yeah.
It's taking away of, like, you need to give me something for this.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the flowers and your spirit team will show you the path of, you know, how to expand and if you need to, but I just wanted to kind of honor you really, and acknowledge you as well, as, you know, your work is just so beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I love it. I love that we're communicating this way, and that your gift is, you know, how we contribute each our little part, right? A big part. It becomes bigger and bigger. It's just like working together. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad we connected. So wonderful to do that what you're offering also. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, it's been lovely to hear that, it was so helpful for you at that point in your life where you
Mhm.
you needed
Yeah.
it because often I don't hear
Yeah,
I
and
don't
and
hear
that
these stories.
yeah, I know. And then it was interesting that we didn't connect for maybe a little bit, and then suddenly I don't know how, I think you appeared. You're in person. You appeared. I'm like, yeah, oh yes. And so I've recently become re-interested, let's say, not so much in the Jesus and Magdalena, but this is the new energy. It's probably
Yeah.
why you reappeared.
It is.
You
It is.
know that the
It is. Yeah. I mean, it's also like on a practical level, I've been freed up because, Benji, our 8-year-old, he has settled down in a special needs school. And, we were a family in crisis for a long time, getting him diagnosed and, getting the
like,
care that he needed. And now we have a bit of respite care every week. And so it's freed up my
nice.
energy. Concurrently at the same
Yeah.
time, Sarah's energy is just exploding and going through the roof. So, it's like it
Wow.
has, yeah, that because that's been another initiation, having a child with special needs. But I love him for not being normal. I'm so happy we're not a normal family.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you are. I thought this was, like we are so normal, and what's wrong with everybody else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
So if people
yeah.
want if
So
people
that's
want to
fun.
have a session, if people want to have a session with you, Aunt, how should they what's the best way to contact you?
Well, they can contact me. They can email me at Angelica at starlight.com. Or Instagram, send a little bleep, and then I'll give you my email address. If you're in the States, then texting. My phone number is 917-796-7314. So I do, if it's abroad, I do work with people from abroad. It's FaceTime that I usually find the best connection with. So it is always telephone. So those are a few ways to reach me, and check out. I'm literally doing some stuff on my website right now, but yeah, Starlight is where you can find my email address. Thank you for asking.
Oh,
I just thought it was fun to chat with you and catch up and expose, let people know that these flowers want to communicate and they have gifts to offer.
yeah, and you have lots of beautiful flower essences on your website as well, don't you?
Yeah, on the Starlight page, on the website, yes, I do. It needs I'm updating it as we speak because things are moving so rapidly that I gave up for a little while. I just dropped it. I was like, oh, So you'll be seeing a lot of shifts in the next 2 weeks on my website that are more up to speed with our new unknown territory that we're entering, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
my
All
website's
right.
my website's the same. It's like I've blocked out 2 days next week because it's so out of date now. It's just the work is just moving. The work is moving so fast, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I would love to buy some of your essences, but unfortunately, I live in a country where if I buy things from America, I get hit with a huge
Yeah.
customs fee. It's just
Right.
$25 they charge me just to open it, and that's before they even charge me extra tax and stuff. And it's like I'm really sad because like I can order stuff from China, but I don't really want to. There's all these lovely things I'd like
No,
to order from the States, but it's just so expensive.
it's ridiculous. It's and the essences I don't. It's the blends that I do. So like the space. I call it space enhancing blends. But yeah, in the States, and there was a lady that I created them for, and she was selling on in she had a license to sell in England. That's how we used to do it. But I think she sold out, and and she's not doing England anymore for good reasons, maybe, or
Yeah.
bad reasons. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
revamping, retuning. It's all changing. So, so what I have found, if it doesn't, whatever the website, people have said to me, doesn't matter. It's they go there, they feel that they need it. Even if the text isn't always the relationship anymore to today's new change.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What time is it over where you are now?
It is now
Rachel?
20 past 8 in the evening.
Oh yes, that's the big difference. The morning has just begun here, it's like 11ish. So I'm gonna start the day here. Yeah.
Well, it's been lovely, really lovely talking to you. And wow, I could just sit and hear you talk about flowers for ages. So perhaps I'll have to, if you do a group or something, perhaps I have to come along and hear, because it's just,
That'd be nice. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Make it accessible for everybody. It's an idea. I like it. So I might just send out a little mailer. Who knows? That could be fun. It's all organic. If it's meant to happen, I suspect I put the intent out there, and let's see what happens. Very exciting. And thank you for spending, your time and making people bringing what's available to the people. I love it. What a great initiative.
Thank you. And it's very satisfying for me, because one of my kind of life purposes is to bring hope to people. And this is really, it's really in my ancestral line. And I've experienced a lot of the polarity in my life, a lot of despair about the world. And so doing this, every time I speak to someone like you, or the other people that I've interviewed, I get such a lift. It's like, you see, Rachel, you see, this is the world. These people are also the world. And obviously we us people like us, we're not on the news, but this podcast, it's a way of making us on the news. And it's just beautiful. The people that I speak to, it gives me such hope for the future.
Yes. Yeah. And you're so good at it, and it's like so soothing, I was like, oh, we kind of want to hug each other almost. That's how I feel. It's like a big air hug that's coming.
That's it. And that's it. When we're living our purpose, it gives us this joy. It's not necessarily how I'll feel when I wake up in the morning tomorrow, but in those moments where I'm acting out and living those life purpose things, and like I said, this is one of them. It's just like, it makes me so happy.
You made my day. I was so looking forward to actually, starting my day with you here. I was like, oh, so exciting, like so uplifting. It's exactly personally also what I needed. It's just talking like this for an hour is just medicine.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing everything that you have with us. And I'm sure a lot of people will have really loved listening to this. And for all of you that are listening, write and give me your feedback. There's a Sacred Podcast page on Facebook, and on Instagram I post these episodes to my rachelgoodwin.dk Instagram page. So write on there and tell us what you think. It's always lovely. It's always lovely to hear. And also, if any of you have any suggestions of people that you would really, really love to hear more about, where they grew up or whatever, because I do love asking these questions of people. Just send your ideas in.
Like it. And I'll post this also on my Instagram page, etc. Your link.
Your shooting star flower. I love it. I love it that it's violet.
I know, but you can see if you go to the Starlight page on Facebook, it's like, whoa, you'll know what I mean. And it's not an altered picture. You think I would have brightened it up? No, I didn't. It brightened itself up for me. That has happened too. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. Right. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and see you again next time. Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Bye, Rachel. Take care. Thank you. Bye.